All right, welcome. My name is Hannah Swager, Manager of Internships with The Exchange, Marian University's Career Office, and today we are doing an alumni interview. We have with us Genevieve Stutz, a previous history major at Marian University who went on to earn her master's in English and who now writes under the pen name Lyra Wolf. Welcome, Genevieve. How are you doing today?
Hi, good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us today and for being willing to share your career journey and how you've gotten started as an independent author. So, I wanted to
Mhm.
start off just by asking a little bit about you and
Mhm.
your academic background. What was your time at Marian like?
It was really great. I was actually very busy. So like as you mentioned, I was in the history major program, and I really just loved that, what boost that gave me, especially for like actually the career I have now. Um, because I actually get to utilize that major more than I ever thought I would be able to without going into a history field, for example. I also got to do an associate's in music at Marian. And so I've just been very grateful for what the university has been able to give me now for my future.
Awesome. Can you let us know a little bit what your career discernment journey looked like after graduation here at Marian?
Yeah, so after Marian, I did a switch, and as you mentioned, I did do a master's program at IUPUI for English, and I also did get a master's certificate in professional editing. So I thought, again, since I was not going to continue on the history path, it was good to try to find something that I could have more of an applicable, especially more freelance work. Because again, after graduation, that was peak recession time. And so if you did not have, 5 years experience plus a PhD, and whatever, you could not even like use an ice cream machine to give out ice cream cones. So yeah,
I'm sure that graduates right now can relate to that as well.
yeah,
Anyway, it's brutal out there.
it was. And that's why I felt like trying to do my own basically business freelance was the way to go. So I fell into just doing freelance editing, which is
Okay.
basically what I what I do the most, aside from writing.
Okay. Definitely using your education credentials for that
Hmm.
every
Yeah.
day. That's awesome. Um, I wanted to explore a little bit about what you write as well, because I feel like that will be of interest to students who are interested in pursuing their own independent publishing and
Mhm.
writing. So, can you let us know a little bit about what you write?
Yeah, so I basically write historical Norse fantasy.
Mhm.
Um, to make another layer, it's more like, pretty much epic adventure. But that's the gist of what I write, which is why I'm able to then use some of my degrees for that. And yeah, so I do get to at least have some fun centering with, the Norse trickster god Loki. So I'm working on a six-book series with him as the main character there, and it's been quite fun some
I
days.
love I love that you can use your passion for history in that as well.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, that's really a meeting of your love of both of those things, so that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really love about your writing is your LGBTQ plus representation. I was wondering if you could talk to us about what inspired your queer representation in the
Mhm.
Norse gods.
Yeah, I mean, there are like many reasons, but mostly it was just very important to me to have a queer norm world, which is what I've established here. And also to have a main character who is, openly bi and pansexual, as well as gender fluid. Because I mean, even in Marvel, that's what Loki canonically is. And then
And
you
in the
can,
Norse
and in the
tales
Norse
for
myths,
sure.
especially, like that's the other reason too, is like the Norse myths themselves are just very queer. And it's important to, represent that. And I mean, there's even like in the myths this insult rap battle between Odin and Loki, and like,
Rap battle.
yeah,
I love
that's really
it.
what it is. And like Odin essentially is like telling Loki, hey, like you practice magic in fishnets. And Loki's like, yeah, but they were yours. And it was our
Oh,
anniversary. It's that kind of a thing. And so that's what I was That's basically where I kind of got my inspiration from.
I love that. That is
Um,
inspiring. Oh my gosh. Um, so I wanted to also talk a little bit about how you get started building an audience and your brand as an author, because that's a question that I get a lot of times from
yeah.
students who are interested in writing. They love writing and they're so well prepared as far as like learning about literature and studying those,
Mhm.
and they love their craft, but how do they get started in a way that they can build their brand and their audience so that they can make money?
Yeah. Well, so the simplest way first is like the best thing to do is number one is like write like what they call a reader magnet. So basically a little short story that you will give away for free. However, this needs to be an example of your best writing because this is what you're going to get people. It's basically a sampling. And so for this, you're going to, again, give it for free on different websites. It's also how you can build a newsletter list. So again, join my list, you'll get this free story, for example. Another really great way is what you can do right now if you have nothing written, you don't even know what you want to write, but you want to start that brand, is just to connect with other readers in your chosen genre. Okay, so like go on Facebook, join. Like for me, I'm on several fantasy reader groups, and I talk about the fantasy books I'm reading, and I connect with other readers that way. That hey, we start talking, and I can mention, hey, I also write this, and they're interested. Because you've made a relationship with them. And that's the thing. Don't sell. You have to make relationships. And then people support you. They don't want to support the person that's just spamming them all the time. And so that's like the easiest way just to start. And after that, like there are other really good groups. Like there's one called 20 Books to 50K on Facebook, and that's really a group of professionals. I mean, some of these guys are making seven figures as independent
Wow.
authors, and they just share all of their knowledge for free of how they're doing it. So I encourage people to check that out if they're starting.
I think that's awesome how writers form communities to support one
Hmm.
another. And I think
Hmm.
that it's important to see that as an opportunity and not to see other people in your genre as just competitors. Like there's a real
Yeah.
sense of supporting one
Hmm.
another in the indie author community, and I
Yeah, there
like
really
that.
is. Yeah, and especially like on Twitter is where again, this is how social media works. Like Twitter is basically where you're going to go to make connections with other authors, with book bloggers, and it's a really great supportive community. And then again, like your like Instagram and TikTok, that's more where you're going to connect with readers.
Okay,
So
awesome. Um, I wanted to ask, what's the number one piece of advice you would give to other writers who um, are maybe having difficulty making money in their writing?
yeah, it's a little bit of an uncomfortable like answer just as far as like you have to really make a decision of what you want and what also makes you happy. And the thing is to make money is really about writing to market. What does the market want? And now sometimes that's okay, that's a dirty word. But there are ways that you can kind of blend what is your passion with what is the market hungry for. And that's a really happy equilibrium. Okay. Like for me, I really love Norse mythology and history and Loki. So I've taken that, but I also try to use kind of the tropes that people expect from adventure fantasy, right? And I've merged those two together. So that's something that, you know, authors starting out really need to figure out. What is it that there's passion? What is the market that they want to go into? Like what's selling there? Read all those books. Make a list of the tropes that's expected in those books. For example, if you're going to write romance, don't do like I did the first time and make it a tragic ending because apparently, like for the genre of romance, that's the major no-no. You do not do. Then it is not romance if it does not have a
Those
happy
are my
ending.
favorite endings. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
And I learned the hard way with some very unhappy people that expected the romance I promised. So again,
I love that. I also think another thing to remember when you're starting out as an indie author is that just marketing your books is a full-time job if you do it
yeah,
right.
it is.
Anyway, so like really spend some time on that as
Yeah.
well. Um, anyway, like do try to hone your writing, find a good, community for
Hmm.
um to learn more about the genre and all of and everything like that.
Yeah.
But like you have to be engaged and
You
present.
you do. And I mean, it's something it takes up half of my time. So, it's basically 4 hours of my day are spent just doing marketing, connecting with other people, and then the other 4 hours or plus, some days I spend writing, and it's a lot, and it's basically never ending. It's a hustle continually, but it's a very rewarding hustle in the end.
That's awesome. Um, I wanted to ask, what is your greatest joy and greatest challenge of life as a full-time writer?
Well, again, just the greatest joy is it's pretty simple. It's just being able to wake up and do what I love doing every day. And I feel very, privileged and blessed to be able to do that. Um, because a lot of people, don't get to be doing this full time. Um, the greatest challenge though again is just that hustle because like I would love to just spend all my day just writing in my little cave or in a faraway castle somewhere and not think about, what is this person thinking about it? What is this person saying? You know, oh, I have to now sell the book, sell, 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 but without being obvious. And so that's the greatest challenge because I have to constantly think up ideas of how can I again connect with the community, how can I just let them know the book exists and let them, find that audience that would, resonate with my work. And so that's, again, that's the biggest challenge there.
Yeah. And as you're talking about like the pressures to like market your books and sell, 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 I was just thinking about how you and I have talked before about self-publishing versus traditional publishing.
Mhm.
And I wondered if you could explore your experience talking to other authors about the differences between self-publishing. Because like I think the concept is like people think in their minds, if I get a traditional publishing, then I can just write and that's it. What would you say to that?
If you can see, I'm laughing. So, yeah, I mean, I have author friends that are traditionally published, and guess what? They still have to market their book. They still have to do the hustle as well. There was no way that you're going to get out of doing grunt work unless you really just are fine with the book kind of going off into, space. So again, with a traditional publisher, if you go that route, of course, like there are still some authors getting advances, but anymore, if you're just a new no-name person, you I've heard now that they've started giving zero advances. So you won't even get a payout for 6 months, and that will be only 10% of the book profits. Whereas me, I actually get 70% of the book profits.
Um,
So you
and
can,
the
make
traditionally published authors are expected to do the same
they're
kind of
expected to do the same
marketing.
thing, which
Yeah.
is after talking to them and doing a lot of research, I spent a year deciding with this series, what was I going to do? And I decided to stay independent for a lot of those reasons. Also, the publisher will own the rights to that work. And so, again, if they don't want you to write 6 books, they want to just end at 3, they own those characters. You cannot continue those stories anymore. And that was something that was kind of, you know, the game ender for me with that decision. Uh, but yeah, and again, traditional is just they'll give you all that, in the beginning for the first year, but after that, they're going to move on. It's a business. They're not about making great art. It's about making them money. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what it is. It's all business.
Yeah.
And so you just have to kind of realize that.
Okay. I wondered if you could let us know a little bit like where students can find out more about your writing.
Yeah, so I mean, you can find me on my website at lyrawolf.com. I'm on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, Lyra Wolf Author. You can also my books are now all on Amazon. There's soon to be an audiobook, actually. So you can kind of find me all those places currently.
Yeah. And this is kind of a bonus question. What are you what do you most look forward to in your writing? What are you looking to do next with your series?
Just trying to get through the third book right now that I'm currently revising. I'm like basically 50% through, and and that's the thing too with like writing with Loki. He's the god of chaos, and so I expect a hearty dose of chaos throughout this process, which I get handed to me quite often. So
Yeah, I can't imagine that Loki as a character would be at all unpredictable
yeah,
for you as you're writing.
yeah, no, not at all. He's very compliant with everything I want to do.
All right, that's awesome. I appreciate you being here today and sharing your journey because I think that this is really helpful information for students who would like to establish their own
Hmm.
readership.
Hmm.
And I appreciate you lending your advice on the business end of what that looks
Yeah,
like.
of course. And, please, anyone that have questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. Um, you can email me at larawolfauthor@gmail.com, for example, if you have any questions. And yeah, I'm happy to chat and hopefully help you as well.
All right. Well, thanks so much, and
Yeah.
I'll look forward to learning more about your books.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me.